it's Leo. It's time to talk about episode 11 from Fairy Ranmaru. There's only one episode left. It's almost time to say goodbye to this amazing story. I really don't want. And there are lots of things to talk about, so let's start. But before we start, I don't know if you've seen, but it's interesting to mention that this week was the release of the vocal album of Fairy Ranmaru. So you can listen to the character songs and also a group song of all the 5 fairies singing together, an enka style song, which is very nice. This album is available on Spotify, Apple Music, and lots of other streaming platforms. So if you have an account on them, you can listen to those songs. I've been listening to them. Uru's song is my favorite out of the character songs. I really like all of them, and the group song is also very nice. But now let's start. Wow, what an episode. We now know what happened in the past. We now know what's motivating the queen to collect attachment. Girl, lots of things. But before we start, I really liked the first scene of the episode. It served a big purpose. We see the four fairies and Takara, the 5 fairies together, and that scene had its purpose. The first one, it had 2 purposes in my view. The first one is that they've been living in the human world for quite a while now, and they've grown accustomed to the human world. And Juka even makes a comment saying, well, is this all the humans do? This is so boring. Like, how is life in the fairy realm? Like, it must be so exciting. But I think that it was to show that they're now accustomed to the human world and the human life, to the point that it's all normal to them. They go to school, they eat, they sleep, they do things that humans are supposed to do. But another thing that was very important, that was very clear in that Homura and Uru interaction, they're playing with our hearts now, with those 2 interacting. I am dying every time I see them. Oh my god, it was so cute. It was nice because it showed Homura's spicy style. Uru was taken a little aback because of that. I think it was a nice metaphor. But they all started laughing together after that. And that is to show that it's not that they're working together, but they're feeling their feelings toward each other. Like, they're really feeling like a family. And Ranmaru smiled. Ranmaru almost never reacts to anything, but he smiled. And I think that's going to be important next episode. It wasn't important in this one, but it's going to be. So after that, we see the queen, and we now know where she is and that space she is. The Hojo, the butler, wants to take her away because he thinks it might be dangerous for her, but she doesn't want to leave. And now we know that she's actually here in the human world. That blue space that she's in, it's just a magical thing around her, but she's actually here, and she doesn't want to leave the human world. And she is still hooked up on what happened in the past, is strong. And so Sirius starts using her dark energy to affect everybody, to affect society as a whole. And Ranmaru is the one that feels it, and he goes after Sirius. And the others, they just stay there. I found that a little strange, because usually what we have in regular episodes is they go by themselves. It's okay, but now they know something dangerous is happening around the city, and they just didn't go after Ranmaru. Like, the others stayed there in the bathroom. I mean, I understand it might be comfy, but Ranmaru was the only one that actually went after what was going on in Sirius' energy. And I mean, isn't that dangerous? Why aren't the others following him? And there was a kind of an explanation for that, because that blue fairy was with him. So that blue fairy was gonna tell the guys if something strange happened. But still very weird. And then Hojo arrives and he starts talking to the other guys, and he actually tells them the story, which was kind of surprising to me and a little bit disappointing, to be honest. So we see that in the past, 3 fairies came to Earth together, attachment. It was Procyon, which is the queen, Sirius, and Betelgeuse. those three started coming to Earth. The queen had an idea. She was the one that she was like the brains behind it all. And I really liked the plan. She created an idol unit between the two. We see the performance, very pretty. And the song is also very nice. And the kissing at the end, girl, I loved it. The queen was living. There was a lot of attachment. She was really able to understand the human world, like, very quickly. But Sirius ended up falling in love with a human, so he didn't really want to gather attachment anymore. There are lots of things to talk about this. The first one is, the queen was gathering attachment because she wanted power to create her own kingdom, and that's what she did. The kingdom that we know, that is talked about in Fairy Ranmaru, did not exist before the queen created it. So the fairies, we don't know how the fairies lived, but they were probably like living scattered, I don't know. But the queen created a beautiful and powerful kingdom, and she called like societies of fairies from the 5 different elements, and they all started living together in harmony. They all had their own world, we already saw that, and they all contributed to society in an important way. So the queen created this place, and it was a place that was good for the fairies, and it was good for her as well. She was happy. It seems that the fairies were happy, but she mentioned something that she was doing everything she could to make humans smile as well. So I don't know if there was like this layer of like creating a beautiful world for the fairies, but not only for the fairies, and to make humans happy as well. But for this world to be maintained, they needed to keep on being the Winter Triangles, which was the name of their idol unit, to collect the attachment so that the world, the fairy world, could still still exist. I don't know how the attachment actually makes the world alive, but we don't need to understand that deeply. And so she needed Sirius and Betelgeuse to keep on working for her as idols. But Sirius met a girl, he wanted to be with her, so he left. He didn't want to collect attachment anymore. And here's my little problem with this. Romance. Okay, I understand that romance drives not only us, but fairies as well. We've already seen that with the Ignis and the Aqua clan. But it's always such a simple explanation, and look, where is the queerness on it all? Like, everything is so queer, but the relationships in this show are so straight that I don't know, it's kind of a disappointment. It does make sense with the plot we've been seeing. It does make sense with the law the queen created, that men cannot have relationships with women, and male fairies cannot have relationships with women. That makes sense to the story. Yes, it does. It's not a plot hole or anything like that, but it's still disappointing that we don't get to see like queer relationships being shown in an anime like this that has such a queer visual, and it's so current as well. So if it was like from the 90s, I could understand, but it's like 2021 now. And together with the fact that Sirius did not want to collect attachment anymore, we had the fact that we had a lot of conflicts blooming in the fairy world. And look, I found this super interesting because they just had to show us a glimpse of what was going on in the fairy world, because we've already been watching those conflicts. In the 10 episodes, those conflicts were present in lots of episodes and lots of times. Like the fight between the Aqua and the Ignis clan, the fall of the Metallum clan, everything was already explained in the 10 first episodes. So it was very interesting. Like, they didn't stop the story to explain what was going on in the fairy world before the anime started. No, they connected it with our current characters. That was a very smart way of using the narrative. I really, really loved it, and kudos to Fairy Ranmaru. That was great storytelling. So with this romance between Sirius and a woman, it was very, it was super interesting that she didn't really care about him. She liked him as a fairy and as an idol. She didn't want him to be a human and a simple person anymore. I really liked that. And it seems the queen killed that woman because of spite. I don't know what the queen was thinking. She must be really immature to think that if she killed the human that Sirius was in love with, he was gonna come back and work with her. Like that makes no sense. Like I really don't understand that. But Sirius was super angry and he became super dark and he ended up betraying the queen, even though she was the one that actually betrayed him, in my view. I don't know. And it was interesting because at that moment we were able to see Hojo, who is the butler, as a child. And it's also very, like, he was defending the queen, and ultimately she didn't really need to be defended by him, because the one that fought was Betelgeuse, who is actually Ranmaru. I mean, Ranmaru now, but he's actually Betelgeuse. And so Betelgeuse fought to defend the queen, and he was crying. That, I think that is important. He was crying because he was fighting his friend Sirius, who's now Chalka. And Chalka is, I think, I don't know, because I don't know Japanese very well, but it seems that it's a word connected with withering of the flowers. And so like he was talking about the flowers that are beautiful but then they wither, and it has to do with his name now, because he is a flower that withered in a way, because now he is not the same fairy as he was before. And so Betelgeuse fought against his friend Sirius, and at that time we see little childish Hojo throwing 2 keys and creating like big monsters. Those monsters were supposed to defend the queen. I don't know their purpose there, but those 2 monsters are the 2 little fairies that we see now, one with the queen and one with the 5 guys that we've been following in monstrous forms. And they also connect to the first episode, to the start of the first episode. In the first episode started with Ranmaru bleeding and asking, what is love? What is love? So I think that's going to be very important for the last episode. I'm going to get to that. And we see this connection between the first episode and now. Like, we know what's going on. And those keys were Hojo's keys. Interesting. And so we see Sirius talking to Ranmaru, and he used Ranmaru's power to transform. Like, it was very nice. I really liked it. And I loved his transformation. We see Sirius transforming. Girl, he looks so pretty with that dark costume, the nails. I loved it. He has a song of his own as well. And then when the door opens, we see Sirius arriving against the queen directly. But before that, Hojo tells the guys that they need to defend the queen. And for them to be able to defend her, the 5 of them need to get together and their hearts need to be on the same place. Like, their heart needs to connect with one another. Ranmaru isn't with them, but I feel like Ranmaru is gonna connect with them because he feels like it's a place he belongs now. But here is my problem with everything, which is Ranmaru so far has been kind of stoic and he doesn't act very much, even though he fulfills his mission very well. I thought that he was like this because he lost his memory. But then we saw Betelgeuse before he lost his memory, and look, he seems to be just a simple person who doesn't show much emotion, and he doesn't question what he has to do as a mission. He's a simple character just like that. And what we've been seeing from Ranmaru is just who he is. Even though he lost his memory, I don't think that is playing a big part on his character. And him being the main character and probably the key for the last episode for them to defend the queen or whatever they're going to do, I feel like he needed more characterization. It's impossible to give him great characterization in one episode. Like, from everything they've built so far for him, like, there isn't much to go from there. I don't know. I'm a little confused. And so we see Hojo fighting. We see Hojo transforming. Girl, his transformation is so cool. I love his visual. But he's like a kind of like a joke character, I think. But he is powerful. And Sirius tells him that he is defending the queen because he loves her and he can't do anything with his love. And he says, I know that, but I accept it. This is my role and that's what I chose to do. So he loves the queen. That's why he's always with her. That's why he's always staying with her. And the queen left. Sirius is probably going to find her. He's probably going to fight against her. I don't know, not fight against her because it seems she doesn't fight. But the other fairies are going to arrive. So, other important things about the fairies. The first thing is, Homura and Duru, they have a great relationship now, and Hojo was gonna tell Homura something about his realm, about the Ignis clan, and Uru told him, no, don't tell him that. I am gonna be the one to tell him. So I really like their connection, and I really hope their connection goes somewhere last episode. Like, I really wanted to see them as a couple, like, really. I am tired of shipping characters and that not going anywhere. But I really want to see that happening. And another thing that I need to say, this episode looked super, super, super good. Like, visually, it was stunning. I loved it visually. It was super impressive. Like, the direction and the art direction of this episode, everything was super on point. And there's just one other thing that I want to talk about, which is the timeline of how things happen in Fairy Ranmaru. So when everything started, with the queen creating the realm and the kingdom, okay, it was fine, I can understand it. And then things started happening in this kingdom, so the kingdom started ruining. But when Sirius betrayed the queen, Hojo was still a child. We don't know how time passes for the fairies. We really don't know if they're like older or younger, but it's clear that the children are children in the fairy realm. Like, we don't know if like Homura, for example, is a teenager or an adult in the fairy world, but we know that like in Juka's episode, we saw him very tiny, so we know he's a little child. How much time has passed since everything happened and where we are now in Fairy Ranmaru? Because when everything happened, Hojo was a child and now he's an older man. So it was like maybe like 35, 40 years between everything. And what happened in the fairy world in this period? Does time flow differently there? What is going on? There are so many questions. There's also one other thing that they mentioned in past episodes, which is when the 5 elements get together, something bad happened in the past. Is this bad thing that happened the thing we saw in this episode, the downfall of the fairy world, or is it something else? I think it's just what we saw in this episode, but it's kind of strange because it's not really because the 5 elements got together, it's just because the fairies are just like the humans in this sense, like relationship-wise, everything cracked down because of pride, because of love, because of betrayal, and because of money. So it's just us humans, basically. They're the same as us. Anyways, this is my view on episode 11. Lots of questions. How are things gonna wrap up in one episode? I am super scared, but I'm hooked. I'm really liking Fairy Ranmaru, and I'm having the time of my life talking about this show. This show is great. This show is great. Anyways, I just want to take this time to thank the members of the Magical Cinema channel. If you are a member, thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you so much for being a member and for staying by my side. Thank you, I really appreciate it. And if you've watched up until now, thank you so much as well. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye bye.